And hearty welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining me for this video in this Packet Tracer Lab. Our objectives in this walkthrough are quite simple. I want to give you an opportunity to practice some of the techniques and the technologies that you've been studying for as part of your CCNA. Now, this lab actually is going to apply to 3 different types of people. One, somebody who is brand new to Cisco, or like just learning the CLI and how to, what enable does and what is privileged mode and config T, what's that? The second one is somebody who's been working with Cisco or studying Cisco CCNA for a while and they just want to practice their skills and verify they know what's going on. And then there's a whole nother category for people who have learned CCNA, they understand it, but then they want to go back and refresh their skills, which is important to do from time to time. So if you are just starting in the world of Cisco systems and learning CCNA and learning about routers and switches and their functions and how they interoperate, you've come to the right place. I'm so glad to have you here. My name is Keith Barker. I'm a double CCIE. My CCIE number is 6783. And I still remember way back then, back in the 90s, like the late 90s, I had my Cisco CCNA, but I was not certified as an expert, a CCIE. And I remember I was in, I think it was Jacksonville, Florida, where it first came to me that I saw an article. I was going to say a blog article, but back in those days it was in a magazine. And it said, are you ready for the CCIE certification? And it said, here are some sample questions regarding that content. And I read through it, and I was I think probably a CCNP at the time, but I read through it and I thought, what is that? It's like a totally different language. And I want to share with you that thought that it is okay to see technologies and see things that are happening like, I don't know what that is. But the secret is I want to pass on to you is that it is all learnable, 100%. I look back at those days and think, oh yeah, I was looking at policy-based routing or spanning tree scenarios or things with routing protocols like OSPF. And as you get more familiar with it, you'll be better and better. And then you can use your CCNA once you get it. You can use that knowledge that you've acquired through your studies and your practice, and you can simply roll that forward into a CCNP or other vendors' technologies as you work with the networks of today, tomorrow, and beyond. So I just want to point out that I'm glad that you're here. If you are brand new to Cisco and you're brand new to these types of techniques, as you watch this video, as we enjoy this video together, and you see something like, I don't know what that is or how that works, have no fear. There is a master playlist as one resource among many that is right here on my channel. It's called the CCNA 200-301 Master Playlist, and you can just hit the link for that. It's in the description below, and you just go down and actually see all the videos. And if you're brand new, I would start at the beginning. And then I'm injecting these Packet Tracer Labs to help reinforce those concepts. So if you see something that's brand new to you or you're not sure quite what it is, no worries, have some patience with yourself. And then you can come back to these labs after you've studied and you say, oh, I get it. I know what that does. And you can actually practice it. So I'm super glad to have you here. Another element that I've added recently in conjunction with connecting with learners and helping people get that CCNA, which is our objective in this channel, is I do a recording. So this video is going live in about 1 hour and 45 minutes from now. Yeah, 1 hour and 45 minutes from now. That means I'm gonna record it. I'm not gonna let the camera stop. Just like you and I are talking, just gonna start, work through the lab, and then afterwards I'll post it, get it up online. And that way, what we can do together when it premieres at, what day is it? It is Saturday. It's going to premiere at 11 a.m. Saturday. I will be there for the premiere, and that way I can chat with you and be in the discussions with you, and we have the best of both worlds. Because if I'm presenting like this, it's hard to take all the questions. And then following that, this is also super fun. I've got a lot of really great admins and moderators on the Discord server, and what we do is after the premiere, if you want to connect with us and want to chat or ask CCNA related questions, join us. We have a voice room on the Discord server, and the link for Discord is in the description below. Right after the video, join us, and we'll go ahead and enjoy some time together there as well. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes we hang out for a long time, but the primary purpose is for us to connect, have questions that come up, feel free to ask, and we can connect that way. All right, so in this lab, let me first of all share with you how you can get it, also what versions we're using, and then we'll do the walkthrough together. All right, so here is my desktop, and let me bring up my little camera in the upper right-hand corner, and there it is. Hi, everybody. All right, so first and foremost, to get this lab, which I just put together yesterday, I'm going to do the walkthrough right now. You can just go to thekeithbarker.com. And if you go to thekeithbarker.com, the link is right here. It's also in the description below. And either click on downloads or go to downloads down here. this is the lab for today. I get a pen out. This is the lab. I had some scribbles from another day. All right, so this is the lab that we're going to do right now. So here's what you can do. You can, if you have a copy of the packet tracer from Netacad, if you don't yet, you can go to netacad.com, sign up for a free account, download packet tracer in this lab. And for most of these up to this point, I'm using version 7.3. So if you're using an older version, you might want to upgrade to 7.3 so you can open it. So if you download this file right here, which is OGIT, Original Gangster IT, 2020-0410. The last lab I did was on the 7th, so this is 10. And if you want some practice with packet tracer, you're welcome to all of these. Now, if you download one of these, and I'm going to actually download this file so that what we do together today is in measurable terms exactly what you can experience if you download it on your own, which I hope you do and get the practice. And that is this. Let's go ahead and click on the download link. What do I want to do? I'm going to save it. So that's going to save it to my downloads folder. It says finish downloading. Great. I'm going to go to my downloads folder, and there's that zip file. So indeed, it is 9:19 local time right now as I record this. And we'll go ahead and right click on that and extract all. Click extract. And then I've got these two files. So one file is the instructions for the lab. Here it is. But I've also taken these instructions for this lab for the 2020-0410, and I've also put it in the packet tracer file itself in the lab. So this is the lab. So I'm going to double click on it to open it. Now I've already authenticated to Cisco, so it's not going to ask me to log in again. If it does for you, you simply log in with your account that you set up for free. And let me resize this so it's visible. Give me one moment. And auto sizing is complete. Let's take a look at the lab. All right, so here in this lab, I'm a little loopy. So here in this lab, and let's get my pen out here. We've got 4 PCs, 1, 2, 3, and 4 across the top here. We've got a couple switches. I've got a router out here. These are just layer 2 switches, by the way. Switch 1 and switch 2. Switch 1 and switch 2. Then I have this server, which is a web server, DHCP server, and DNS server. And let's use the instructions right here to take a look at the requirements for this lab. So let me scroll up just a little bit. And here's the requirements. So one thing I've discovered is that it's really important to document, like the carpenter's rule. Carpenters, if they're building something and they make a cut in a piece of wood and it's wrong, or if it's too short, you can't really undo that. And so the carpenter's rule is measure twice, cut once. And that's also very important as we deal with a topology or a network where we have subnetting involved, DHCP, default gateways to configure. And part of this was inspired by a Reddit comment I saw that said, hey, is there like a lab that does everything? That's my own accent. It's just text. Sorry. Sometimes I use alternate voices in my head. Anyway, was there some kind of master lab? And I thought, you know, let me create some additional labs with different aspects and different angles that give the opportunity still at the CCNA level to practice without a monster network with 200 devices and everything else. So here's our objectives for this lab. We are going to have PCs 1 and 3 in VLAN 50, which implies that we need VLAN 50. And we have PCs 2 and 4 in VLAN 60, which implies that we need a VLAN 60 because they are not created. If we want those VLANs, we got to create them. And DHCP assigned for addresses for those PCs. So that is very likely going, in fact, it's going to mean we need to configure DHCP pools on the DHCP server. And the DHCP web DNS server has the last IP address in VLAN 70, which means we need VLAN 70. So, oh, this is also giving us our subnets up here. So planning out is really important here. I can't stress enough, because if we start going and configuring pools and addresses and we're in the wrong subnets or we don't have the right masks, that's a problem. And so what I would like to do is I'd like to identify what are the ranges for these subnets 50 and 60 that belong to VLAN 50 and 60. The subnets, what are these subnets associated with VLANs 50 and 60, and also VLAN 70, that subnet, what is the range for that? Now, if you're new to IPv4 addressing and subnetting and custom subnetting and VLSM, variable net masks, join us for a little segment of videos called Subnet Saturdays. Now, I made a separate playlist on the channel for that. I also have those integrated as part of the master playlist. Either way, it's great. I had a comment. Let me digress for just one moment. I had a comment, actually a few comments like this over the last few weeks, and they said, "Oh my gosh, I was totally a little bit skeptical." Again, my voice, not theirs. I was a little bit skeptical about really being able to calculate subnets and what the mask should be for this many hosts or for this many subnets or variable length masking. And I was going in skeptical, but by George, again, my paraphrase, I get it. I get it. I can do this. I can calculate it. I can figure it out. I can identify the subnet based on the mask and what the ranges are and how many bits should we leave for host addressing for a certain size network. And I thought, you know what? That makes it completely worth it for me. Completely worth it. If an individual who wants to learn how to do IP addressing and subnetting and get quite competent at it to do it consistently correct, it makes my day. So anyway, thank you for feedback regarding that, and for anybody who wants to learn about IP addressing from the ground up, including masks, subnet masks, what they do, how it works, check out the Subnet Saturday series. All right, going back to our drawing here. Okay, so we have these VLANs, and let's calculate the ranges here. So if we have a 28-bit mask, what you've seen me do before, and I will do again right here, is I'm going to jot out the values in 1 octet of data, 8 bits. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. I'm going to count them too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. So if this is representing the 4th octet, octet's a fancy way of saying 8 bits, 1 byte of data, and we have the 3rd octet going that way, and this is the 4th octet. If we have a 28-bit mask, looks like we have a same length mask everywhere. That means that if this is the 24 mark, 3 octets of all mask on. Additionally, we'd have 1, so I'm just going to count 24, then 25, 26, 27, 28, and boom, that's the dividing line, and all these would be zeros. Now, why is that important? For me, it's important because this least significant bit of the mask that's on, that's our block size. And we'll cover all that. We have covered that, actually, in Subnet Saturdays. So for our networks, for these networks, 50, 60, and 70, they all start with 10.67.83. something. And our subnets shown right here start with 0. And then to the next subnet would be add the block size, which they're using for VLAN 60. So that would be 16. So 10.67.83.0/28. 10.67.83.16/28. And then we'd add 16 again. So 16 and 16 is 32 for VLAN 70. And if we said, what is the next VLAN just for range purposes, the next available subnet would be 16 more. Again, just add the block size, add the block size, add the block size for each of our subnets if the mask is the same. So 16 plus 32 would be 8 and 4, 48. So the reason that's helpful, very helpful, is that we now know the ranges of each of those subnets. See, just looking at an IP address, it's not always that obvious to say, oh, here's the range, I got it. Maybe if you're maybe if you're a quadruple CCIA and you work with subnetting every single day. But for me, it's not easy. I have to still just look at it and calculate it to make sure it's right, because sometimes addresses look tricky, like the last octet being 255 in some IP address. You think you can't have 255. Well, if you have a 17-bit mask, you could have 255 for the last valid host address, or a valid host address, because the 3rd octet could have some bits that are off. All right, I digress. So here's our ranges. And for VLAN 50, our first address is .1. I'll just put them here. So the first valid IP address is .1, and the next one is going to be the next subnet -2. That's because the 15, the one less than the next subnet, is the broadcast address, and then the next one below that is the valid usable address for host. So that'd be 14. And for the 60 VLAN, it'd be 17 through, 2 less than the next subnet, 30. And for the 70 VLAN, it'd be the first IP address would be 33, and then it would be 2 less than the next VLAN, as the next subnet. That's why I added that other subnet, is because I just wanted to be able to have a range. So 33 through 46. So those, we only have 3 subnets here, but those are the ranges. So we might want to use IP addresses in those ranges, and based on the task, we might want to go ahead and put the ones that they're calling for. So let's change the color to red, and let's take a look. So PCs 1 and 3 are going to be in VLAN 50, okay? And It doesn't say what. Okay, great. So we'll create some pools on the server for those. And same thing for VLAN 60, PCs 2 and 4. Fantastic. And then DHCP assigned addresses. Yep, got it. Okay, the DNS DHCP web server. Let me erase this real quick so we can see them. The DHCP web server, DNS server, this bad boy right here, is in VLAN 70, which means we'll have to make this access port assigned to VLAN 70 to put him in VLAN 70. And then furthermore, that VLAN is associated with the IP subnet of 1067.83.32. That's VLAN 70. And the default, okay, and the server, I know I put it in there. The server has the last IP address in VLAN 70. So this is VLAN 70. This is the last IP address. So I'm going to make a little note that is the server's IP address. In fact, I'm going to write that down right now. All right, so the server, the server is going to be 10.67.83.46 based on this instruction. And then it says the default gateway is the first IP address in each subnet. So let me use a different color for that. Let me use blue. That means whoever the router is going to be for this topology is going to have, for each of those 3 networks, it's going to have the IP address of .1. I'll put gateway, default gateway. It's going to have .1 for the subnet associated with VLAN 50. It's going to have .17 for the subnet associated with VLAN 60, and it's going to use .33 for the subnet associated with VLAN 70. And I'm going to jot those down too, because when we get configuring, we don't want to go back and say, what was that address again? I just want to make sure I get it right. All right. So now with so now with those written down, we've got the IP addresses involved. We know who the default gateways are. That's the carpenter's rule. Spend a little bit of time planning, and then make sure that those are correct. And I haven't triple checked, but looking at this and looking at this, I think we're right on. And then after we get into the configuration, it'll be a lot easier, especially if you aren't having problems or troubles because we have the wrong addresses involved. All right, so continuing on. That's our math. Let's see if there's any other IP address information. Okay, so I'm going to clear off that screen. I've got the default gateway addresses written down. I've also got the IP address of the server written down and the ranges written down. So that's a good start. And what else do we need to do? It's also a great idea to check our tasks, the whole thing, before we start. And that way, if we're missing anything or something comes up later, we're not just surprised by it. I remember when I was a really young kid, my dad was an educator. He's a principal. He was a school teacher for many years in Southern California. And then he got his master's degree through continuing education, working like summers and weekends, working on his master's degree so he could become a principal. And gosh darn it, he was a good principal at an elementary school for many, many years. But one of the things he did, I still remember, this is a good lesson, Dad. What he did was he brought this, it was like 3 sheets long. I forget how old I was. I was maybe somewhere between 10 and 12, 13 maybe. So anyway, he brought these sheets to me, and it was instructions on what to do. And it said, step number 1, read all the instructions before you begin. Step number 2, write out blah, 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 blah. Step number 3, identify this. Let me tell you what it said at the very end. The last instruction was, don't bother doing any of the instructions between 2 and like 40. And instruction number 41 was, just do this one simple thing. And so he enjoyed, well, you know, it was a good example. I still remember, I'm 56 years old now. I still remember this example, this lesson, that it pays to plan and read everything first. You know what you're going into. So as he saw me doing all these tasks, he realized, yeah, he did not read all the instructions first. So you can save time by being thorough at the very front. Same thing for a CCNA. And instead of just jumping in, which I have a tendency to do that all the time too, like jump in and see what happens. But if you spend a few minutes, like with CCNA, download the blueprint from Cisco, look at the topics, identify what you need to study or what's that, and then start studying gradually, consistent. The game is not to just do everything at once, unless your name is Kelvin, and you can do that. But it's rather to make sure that you're learning, for the average human, learning at a steady pace, consistently getting better over and over and over. People say, Keith, you're at 100,000 plus on YouTube now. I was like, yeah, well, I've been on YouTube for 10 years. And that's how it happens. Or, gee, you present pretty well. I feel comfortable. I like your teaching style. Well, I've been doing it for a while. So it takes a long time to become an overnight success. Long story short, we are all in this boat together. It's just a matter of enjoying it, studying, getting a little bit better every day, and just keeping on that journey and having joy while you do it. Say, yep, I'm moving from here to here, and now I'm moving from here to here, and just keep on moving. Okay, so now we've done our planning. Well, some of our planning. Let's take a look at the rest of our tasks. So they want no STP block ports. I see right here that I've got a block port. That's what that amber, officially, that amber LED indicates. Spanning tree is seeing a loop and it's blocking. So we need to solve that. Very likely we're going to do EtherChannel. We could either disable a port and make sure there's no parallel paths, or do EtherChannel. My intention is for us to do EtherChannel, and then verify the clients can ping each other, and they're in VLANs 50 and 60, and also make sure the clients can open the web page at thekeithbarker.com, which is going to involve some DNS. All right, so that's our task. Let me clear this off, and as we go through this, for each of the topics, if we come up against something like, I don't know what that is, or what is that? Several options. One is feel free to join us in the chats and just ask for like a clarifying question. Join us in the Discord server after. We're going to have a voice chat there. And also you can find me in Discord as well. So later, if you join the Discord server and just do a DM to me, I'm the OGIT Keith. I'm happy to periodically throughout the week, I jump in, follow up with friend requests, and follow up with chats and everything else to make sure you get what you need. All right, so again, if there's something new here that you haven't seen yet, no worries, hang in there. And as you study that topic, feel free to come back to this lab or the other labs anytime you want. All right, so let's begin with our infrastructure. I'm going to start with our switches. So I'm also going to use Notepad here. Let me bring up Notepad. Just because I've got a lot of commands that are going to be very similar, and I just want to be able to knock them out of the park quickly. Config T, going into configuration mode, and on the switches, spanning tree mode. I'm just shortcutting these a little bit. Rapid and spanning tree, port fast default, and no IP domain lookup. And line console 0. Now, as you start working with labs more and more, what you might find yourself doing is having this text document somewhere on your computer that's easy to find, and you just use it all the time as part of your default config when you're working on labs. And that way you can just grab it, copy, paste, and you've got all these defaults that are like comfort commands. They're going to make your life better at the CLI, all ready to go. All right, line console 0 and line console 0 logging synchronous and no exec timeout. And how about privilege level 15? So it just gives me King Kong rights when I'm in there, no worries. And how about a host name? Now let's copy that. Control A on a Windows computer, and Control C for copies to my clipboard. And I'll go to switch 1, and we'll bring this over a little bit and go to the CLI. Make sure it's in the screen. Looks good. And we'll just right click and paste, and that is switch 1. One of the first things I like to do is make sure my hosts are named, or devices are named correctly. That way CDP doesn't show everything as router switch. It's like, tell me the router actually, what router it is. That's helpful, or switch it is. So we'll do the same thing over on switch 2. All except for the host name being slightly different. And we'll right click and paste. All right, switch 2. And I'm going to need those similar things on the router, except I don't need spanning tree. So I'm going to do it right now because I'm here. Let's go to my Notepad, and I don't need spanning tree. So I could just comment those out or just delete them. Let's delete them. And then Control A, Control C for copy. Here at the router, privilege mode, right click, paste, and R1. All right, I feel better already. All right, some basic infrastructure stuff done. Let's get our VLANs created and our trunking set up. We're going to need trunking between switch 1 and switch 2 on FA0/11 and FA0/22. And we're going to need trunking here on switch 1 gig 0/1. And that's because these switches are not multi-layer switches. They do not route IP packets for other people. So as a result, we're going to have to do router on a stick to make this work. And we got some videos in the playlist on router on a stick. So if you want to do it with InterVLAN routing with a switched virtual interfaces, you need a multi-layer switch. In this case, R1 is not a multi-layer switch. So we're going to trunk from the switch down to router 1 and then create sub-interfaces down there. But before we do that, let's finish off our switches. So on the switches, let's go to interface range, FA0/11 and FA0/22. We'll do switch port mode trunk. These switches do not support ISL, so there's no benefit of saying switch port trunk encapsulation .1Q because that's all they support. And all right, so let's copy that. Go to switch 1. Okay, I was already in configuration mode, so it didn't like me saying that again. Go to switch 2 and right click, paste. Okay, and now if we do a show, okay, so spanning tree is sorting it out, right? There are the amber LEDs, orange LEDs are figuring out what's going on there. So let's also do this. Let me create config T, and we'll do VTP domain of OGIT. And it's going to be version 2 by default. They're going to be VTP servers by default. We have trunks, and let me just go ahead and create some VLANs while I'm at it. VLAN 10, no. VLAN 50. VLAN 50, and VLAN 60, and VLAN 70, and end, and write. So write is a shortcut for write memory, which is an old way of doing copy, run, start, which is the official way to do it. So even though we should synchronize if we're doing the same VTP domain eventually and we have trunks, I'm just going to go ahead and paste this in on each device, and that way the VLANs, the 3 VLANs will be there. So we'll go to switch 1, paste, done, and switch 2. I've got show there. And switch 2, we'll do a paste. All right, so show VLAN brief. So the VLANs exist, show interface trunk. And I've got trunking. So FA0/11 and 22 are trunking. And on switch 2, we're not doing any blocking. We do have some blocking over here on switch 1. Do the spanning tree, show interface trunk. No trunk. All right, so right here, FA0/11 is blocking with spanning tree, and we'll fix that after we get the infrastructure all working. Then we'll come back and deal with EtherChannel, assuming we have time. And I hope we do, because that's part of our lab tasks. All right, so our infrastructure as far as trunking is good. We have our VLAN set up. Let's go ahead and set up our routing, which is going to be on R1. And this is going to be an example of router on a stick. And people, when they're first new to this, and you may not have to configure this too many times in your life because a lot of things are going to SVIs and multi-layer switches. But the reason they call this ROAS, router on a stick, is because there's your router, and it looks like it has one connection, one physical connection. There's a stick like a lollipop, and that's why it's called router on a stick. But what we're going to do is we're going to carve out 3 sub-interfaces on this routed interface. So we're trunking from the switch. We'll carve out 3 sub-interfaces on the router. We'll assign them to 50, VLAN 50, VLAN 60, VLAN 70, and then assign IP addresses with the first valid IP address in each of those respective IP subnets based on our plan, which, good news, I wrote down. So I can actually put the right address in and not have to wonder, what was that address again? All right, so let's do that next. So on R1, we'll, there's R1, and let's do a config T. Interface gig 0/0, the parent interface, gig 00, has to be up if we want these sub interfaces to work for InterVLAN routing with router on a stick. So we'll do a no shutdown, and then we'll go into interface gig, hit the up arrow key, 00. I'm going to use .50 for my first sub interface number because I'm going to use it for VLAN 50, just where I can remember when I see it what it is. So encapsulation, .1Q, and for VLAN 50, and IP address 10.67.83. Looking at my notes, this is VLAN 50, first valid IP address is going to be .1. And the mask is, that's 24 bits in the mask, and we're using a 28-bit mask, so that's how we spell 28 bits in dotted decimal format. All right, so I'm going to hit the up arrow key 3 times, create a brand new interface, sub-interface for .60, up arrow key 3 times, change the VLAN for that new interface to 60, up arrow key 3 times, and put the correct starting address, first IP address in that VLAN. I should say in the subnet associated with that VLAN, which is .17, again, based on our plan. Boom. Up arrow key 3 times, changing the new sub interface to 70, up arrow key 3 times, changing it to watch for 802.1q tags that are saying they're 70, and up arrow key 3 times and putting on the first valid IP address from that subnet associated with that VLAN, which based on my notes is 33. All right, not 1733, just 33. All right, and then to verify work is so important. Show, especially if I'm typing, show IP interface brief. And what that shows us is that those 3 sub interfaces are up, which is great news. And they've got the IP addresses of .1, .17, and .33. And also, just for grins, I'm going to do a show IP route connected. And just to verify that it's the 0, 16, and 32 networks. That's a trash truck here in the background. It's trash day in Vegas. Woo! One big excitement. If I wasn't recording this, I'd be out the window. Ooh! They've got these cool arms. They grab the trash and they just, not the trash workers, they're driving the vehicle, but they've got electric arm or mechanical arms. They're a lot of fun. I don't know. They never get old. Okay, so we've got our sub interfaces configured. Let's take a look at our tasks. So, we need to put these PCs. PC1 goes in VLAN 50, PC2 goes in VLAN 60, and that's all on switch 1. So let's do that next. So config T, interface FA0/1, which is the interface connecting PC1, and access switch port mode access. That means it's not going to be dynamically negotiated, and switch port access VLAN 50. Great. Interface FA0/2, which goes to PC2, and switch port mode access and switch port access VLAN 60. And then we'll verify our work. Show VLAN brief. That'll do it. So 50 and 60. We could also do a show interface status, and that will also show us too. I'll scroll down a little bit here. So that also shows us the ports involved and the VLANs that are currently assigned, and that looks great. All right, let's also verify our trunk here on switch 1 going down to R1. Show interface trunk. Oh yeah, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. That's important. If we want the router to do sub interfaces for InterVLAN routing, we need to send 802.1q tags, and that means from the switch's perspective, it has to be a trunk. So let's solve that. Config T, interface. I'm going to config from the terminal. Didn't get the T in there. And interface gig 0/1. Switch port mode trunk, and show interface trunk. Wow, show interface trunk. Here we go. All right, so now gig 0/1 is trunking, meaning any frames for VLANs 50, 60, or 70, it's going to include the 802.1q tags, and then when the router receives it, it says, oh, do I have any sub interfaces configured for those VLANs? And if it does, it then logically has the correct sub interface process that associated VLANs traffic. All right, so I'm glad we looked. So we've got the default gateways on these sub interfaces on R1 setup. That's great. We've got trunking set up everywhere. That's great. We have the access ports assigned on switch 1 and on switch 2 respectively, or do we? So no, we don't. So on switch 2, I thought I didn't do it yet. So let's configure FA0/3 to be assigned to VLAN 50 and FA0/4 to be assigned to VLAN 60. That's why we check our work, Keith. Show, see here, config T, interface FA0/3, and switch port mode access. And that's a good idea, by the way, because we don't want to have an access port, or port going out to a client that could be negotiated as a trunk, because then a hacker with Kali Linux or many other tools like Yersinia could connect, establish a trunk, and then have access to all the VLANs and escape and not have to work with ACLs or anything else. Just, hey, I want to be on this VLAN. I want to be on that VLAN. Trunks that carry all VLANs carry all VLANs. All right, so switch port mode access is a good idea for the client ports, and switch port access, we'll assign that to VLAN 50. We'll hit the up arrow key a few times, go to port 4 on switch 2. Up arrow key, switch port mode access, and switch port access VLAN 60. And then also FA0/5 needs to be assigned to VLAN 70 because that's where the server is. So let's do that too. So 3 up arrow keys, FA0/5, and 3 up arrow keys, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 70, and then we will verify our work. Show VLAN brief. 3, 4, and 5, 50, 60, 70. Looks good to me. All right, now, as we continue on, DHCP assigned addresses for PCs. So we need a DHCP server. There's only one DHCP server here. I suppose we could configure DHCP services on the router if we wanted to, but because we have a server that is purpose-built that can do that for us, let's do that. So we click on the server. There it is. And you know what we should do? Let's verify it has an IP address that works. So we'll go to config, fast Ethernet 0. Yeah, okay. So we'd want to make sure that this server has an IP address that we can use. And and I jotted it down. So our server is at .46, and the mask is 255.255.240, which is a 28-bit mask. So yeah, it pays to plan it out and have it down on paper so that when you go to implement it, you can remember what it was or is. All right, let's go ahead and do that. So we'll configure a static address, and that's going to be, make sure it's in frame here, 10.67.83. Looking at my notes, 46. Double checking. All right, I think that's correct. And then I'll just go ahead down to the mask, and that's going to be a mask of 28 bits. So that's 24, and that's 4 more. All right, and let's also make sure we have a default gateway, because this guy's in VLAN 70. He needs to have a default gateway so he can respond to devices outside his local subnet, and that's going to be 10. Going back to my notes, he's in VLAN 70. The first valid IP address in VLAN 70 that we just assigned a moment ago to the router was .33. So 10.67.83.33. And the DNS server, let's do that as well. The server itself is acting as a DNS server, a DHCP server, and a web server. So for DNS, for name resolution, I'm going to tell the server, it's you. So to do that, I'm going to put the IP address of the server itself, 10.67.83.46. I am so glad I wrote this down, because I would be like, oh, what was that? So writing it down, very, very helpful. Let's continue on. And let's also verify that. Let's go to the desktop of this server, go to the command prompt, and do an IP config. Just to verify we have the IP address we think we do. 46, default gateway is 33. And you know what, since we're here, let's ping our default gateway. 10.67.83.33. Great. Great sign that we can ping our default gateway. And now we need to set up DHCP pools for our clients. The clients in VLAN 50 and clients in VLAN 60. So we'll go back to our web server, DNS server, DHCP server, click on services, and let's go to DHCP right here. So let me scroll this over so we can see it. All right, so on this server, currently it has the default server pool with what packet tracer might think we would want, but let's go ahead and create separate pools for VLAN 50 and VLAN 60, which are not local to the server. This server's in VLAN 70, but we're also going to have to set up IP helpers, DHCP relays, so the clients can have their DHCP requests sent over and offers and discovers sent over. So I'm going to enable the service. That's important. So I'll turn it on, and let's create a pool called VLAN 50. And the default gateway for VLAN 50, looking at my notes, is .1, 10.67.83.1. The DNS server is going to be our server, the one we're sitting on, which is 10.67.83.46. All right, so now the IP addresses are becoming more familiar. The starting address is going to be 10.67.83. Now the range for that subnet is 1 through 14. We're already using .1. I'm going to start at .2 because there's nobody else in this network. So I'm going to start the DHCP pool at .2, and I'm going to say go ahead and hand out up to 10 addresses. We can't hand out 255 addresses. There aren't that many host bits left for hosts in that specific subnet in the VLAN 50 VLAN where we have the 10.67.83.0 network. The mask is okay, and I think we're good. So I'm going to click on Add here, and that adds that new VLAN. Let's do it again for VLAN 60. I'm just going to overwrite the top of this. 60, it's starting at the default gateway for VLAN 60. Looking at my notes is going to be .17. And the DNS server is still 46. This hasn't changed. It's still the server. And then the starting range where I want to hand out IP addresses, I want to do, the first address is 17. I'm going to start with 18 and say it can hand out 10 addresses, and then click on add. Very important. Let's double check our work. So VLAN 50, default gateway is .1. Correct. VLAN 60, default gateway 17. Starting addresses are .2 and .18 respectively. The mask is a 28-bit mask. Fantastic. That looks good. Now, while we're here, just also make sure that you've enabled DHCP, otherwise it won't do it. And let's also go back to the HTTP service because part of the objectives was to have clients connect to this server at thekeithbarker.com, and so we need to make sure we enable HTTP services. And while we're at it, if this is the DNS server that clients are using, let's also make sure we have an A record, which we do. So there's an A record, that's an IPv4 record that says, hey, if somebody's looking for thekeithbarker.com with a UDP request for DNS, go ahead and respond back with 1067A346. You can thank me later. I preloaded that, so that's one less step you'd have to do to make this work. But I want to make sure that DNS is enabled, so there it is. Okay, now, what's next? Okay. So right now we go to a client like PC1, and we just go to config and go to fast Ethernet and click on, I'm just going to bounce it by clicking static, then going back to DHCP. Oh, yeah. I said there's a 169 address. 169 implies, hey, I tried to get a DHCP address, but nobody gave me love. Nobody. So to solve that, we need to make sure that there is a device in VLAN 50 that if it hears a DHCP discover message, it can wrap it up, ship it over to the DHCP server, who can then look at that packet that came in, and from the information in that packet, the server can tell, oh, what subnet this came from. So we need to enable IP helper on each of the sub interfaces, the default gateway interfaces, so that it can forward over to the DHCP server. So we're going back to R1, and let's do this. Config T, interface range. Let's see if this works. Gig 0/0.50. Gig 0/0.60. All right, I'll take it. So we're basically, whatever we put here is going to apply to both those sub interfaces. And then I want to do IP helper address and the IP address of the server, which is .46. One of the things about a lot of labs is they use a lot of common addresses, like, oh yeah, the subnets are all nice clean boundaries of 8 bits, and the default gateways are always .1, and this makes you think a little more and plan with subnetting. That's why I injected it as opposed to just using .1 for every default gateway. All right, so IP helper address is 10.67.83.46. Peeking at my notes, yep. And just to verify that, we need to show IP interface for gig 0/0. They're both going to be the same. So this is a show IP interface for gig 00.50, and check this out. Here we go, right there. Helper address is 1067.83.46. All right, rocking. So now, if we go to this client, and it has a straight, oh, look at that. It got. So here's what I would do. If you need to force it, I'd go click on static, DHCP, and then make sure it got an address. We'll do that for each of the PCs. This is PC2, and we'll go to fast Ethernet, DHCP. Nice. PC3, config, fast Ethernet, DHCP. Okay, and PC4. Here we go, config, DHCP. Oh, I want to go to fast Ethernet. Also, it looks like if you go to global settings and you, for your gateway, do DHCP here, it just assumes that you're going to be a DHCP client. Okay, that's good to know because I saw it change before I even clicked on it, but all right. So looks like that works. Let's see if we can ping. Let's do PC to PC, PC4 to PC1. So PC1 is at .3. Let's go to PC4, go to desktop, command prompt, and do a ping. Oh my gosh, I forgot what the address was. .3. All right, don't forget, Keith, don't forget. All right, so we'll do a ping to 10.67.83.3. Okay, good. So the router, who's doing router on stick, if it does an ARP, it needs to resolve PC1's address, its layer 2 address, the initial packet would be lost due to ARP. But now that's in the ARP cache. There we go, 5 out of 5. I'm assuming 5 out of 5 because the first one hit. All right, so next, let's verify we can go to the server. So let's go to PC2 just to mix it up a little bit. We'll click on, let me bring this over a little. Oh, come on, you. Bigger. I want bigger. There we go. Let's go to desktop and go to command prompt. I wonder if NS lookup works. NS lookup. Oh, okay. So I didn't know that existed inside of Packet Tracer, but NS lookup is a great DNS tool. So I'm going to do a NS lookup, thekeithbarker.com. What that does, it goes to the DNS server, says, hey, I got this name. What's the IP address? And here it's returning the IP address, resolving that the name keithbarker.com resolves to in this lab, which is great. So DNS is working, and let's close that window and go to browser. And let's go to thekeithbarker.com. Now, by default, in a browser, it's going to try HTTP, but you can also type HTTP:// first before the name. And there it is. Hey, and this is Dan, also known as DD153 on on the Discord server. He's one of the moderators. Great job. He built this little custom web pages for me on the Packet Tracer server. So you click on that. This is all just taking you inside that server on Packet Tracer. So there's the keithbarker.com where you can download the lab on the real internet. There's my master playlists, fantastic, and there is the Discord server information. I've got links for all that in the description below. Okay, so I think we are in great shape. Let's take a look at our tasks here. PC 1 and 3, PC 2 and 4, yes. DHCP assigned addresses, last IP address, yep, gateway. Okay, we did verify clients can ping each other, verify clients can open the web page, but we did not take care of the blocked ports. Let's do that right now. And that is going to be, now we have a couple options here. One is we can just shut down one of the ports. I'm talking about these bad boys right here. See, this amber indicates that we have a block. So you can see that a couple of ways. You could do a show spanning tree for VLAN 50 or 60. It's going to be blocked for both because it's the same bridge IDs and priorities by default across the board that everybody's using. So we can also do a show interfaces trunk, and that will show us what's being not forwarded on that one port, FA0/11. But it's indeed blocking. So check out the spanning tree videos for more on how the spanning tree works and how to configure it. And also we have a video or two on EtherChannel that talks more about how EtherChannel works. But that's what we're going to do here. We're going to do EtherChannel on these two interfaces. So let's go to switch 1. And on switch 1, we'll go to interface range, FA0/11 and FA0/22. Going to verify my ports, yep. And enter. And then we're going to do a shutdown. The only sane way, well, not the only sane way, but if you want to avoid problems in production or Packet Tracer with just links that go into error disable state and links that don't come up correctly, if you're doing EtherChannel, shut down all the EtherChannel ports that are going to be in the bundle, make the configurations, double check them, and then bring them up. That's the safest way to do it. So I'm going to do channel. I thought it was channel. Oh, so with the iOS, if you type in a command, it's not unique. It's not going to auto-complete for you when you hit tab. That's the case here. So channel-group, and we'll use group 1, and we'll do mode, and we'll say that we want the mode to be, whoa, lots of options here. So PAGP, Port Aggregation Protocol, is an older technology for EtherChannel, for link aggregation. And the standard LACP, Link Aggregation Control Protocol, is preferred usually. So I'm going to say active. And what that means is that I want to use Link Aggregation Control Protocol on this side. And there's a whole discussion on how they negotiate that and so forth. But I'm going to use that here. And let's do a do show history, because there's separate history buffers for the privilege mode and configuration mode. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to go right here. Oh, I also... So I'm going to copy that, go over to switch 2. Same exact ports are being used. That's why it works. Config T, and right click and paste, interface range, shut down, and then the channel. Okay, great. So now they're back to back. All those 4 interfaces are down. Let's go ahead and bring them up with the no shutdown. I'll save that. We'll go back to switch 1, end, WR, or copy run start, whatever your flavor is of the day. And, oh, I didn't do a no shut. I got so excited. show interface status. Yeah, it's not up. I need so I should probably bring them up. So let's do a interface range again. No shutdown. All right. So now what's happening is they're negotiating the link aggregation control protocol and that EtherChannel bundle. Sometimes in non-Cisco devices they call it a lag, link aggregation group. And what we can do while that's sorting it might take a few moments to do that. Let's do a show EtherChannel summary. Fantastic. So here's the Dick Tracy decoder up here on top regarding what these mean. So we have a port channel group called PO1 SU capital S refers to layer 2. The capital U is in use. The protocol LACP and the ports involved are these two bad boys right here. And let's see if it shows up in spanning tree now. Also, you notice the links. We no longer have amber links here. That means there's no blocking going on because spanning tree sees that EtherChannel group as one logical port. It says, hey, I've got one connection between switch 1 and switch 2. No loops. And then the EtherChannel bundle sorts out bit load balancing inside that bundle, which connection it's going to use as it sends it. But logically, it's just one. So let's do a show interface trunk. Look at that. Love it, love it. So instead of having two separate ports that go between switch 1 and switch 2, which we physically have, that's the underlying network, we now have a logical port channel between the two. And because spanning tree just sees one path, it's not blocking. So that's VLANs and spanning tree forwarding path and not pruned, meaning also not blocked. And if we do a show spanning tree for VLAN 10, oh yeah, we don't have a VLAN 10, hence no spanning tree. So let's take a look at a VLAN we have. Here's show spanning tree for VLAN 50. Let's take a look at this. This says that port channel number 1, that port on switch 1 is a root port, which implies that switch 2 is the root bridge. And we also are the designated port for gig 0/1 as we're trunking down to R1. And we're also the designated port for FA 0/1, the access port here, as we're forwarding out to that client. I think we're good. So let's just go back to PC2, and let's go to a different PC. Let's go to PC3, desktop, and click on web server, and go to thekeithbarker.com. We already verified DNS resolves that to the IP address of the server. We are good to go. Oh, did you see that? I saw a little indicator over here, a little LED that changed for a link indicator up to PC2. Let's just verify PC2 is still honky-dory. So on PC2, thekeithbarker.com. Oh yeah, okay, we're good. I'm not sure what that little hiccup was, but I've got rapid spanning tree. These are access ports. So I've also, I didn't do port fast. I didn't do spanning tree port fast default. All right, so it could have taken a minute for that to resolve. That's okay. So let's do a test and verification that we did all our pieces. And that would involve done, DHCP assigned addresses for all the PCs, done. We assigned the correct IP address and default gateway to the DNS web and DHCP server. The default gateway, which was the router on a stick, had the first IP address in each subnet, which was yeah, we already did that. Don't need to hash it. No STP blocked ports. That we did that courtesy of EtherChannel. Clients can ping each other. Clients can open up the server at thekeithbarker.com, and we are done. All right. Okay, truth be told, that took longer than I thought it was going to take. So in answer to the question, hey, is there a lab out there that combines a lot of different technologies in the world of CCNA 200-301? The answer is yes, and this would be one of them. I drop new videos 2 to 3 times a week, and here's my normal schedule. Wednesday, Pacific time, 4 p.m. Saturday, Pacific time, 11 a.m. Sunday, Pacific time, 11 a.m. And I'm going to be dropping also one lab or one lab-related video and something you can download and practice with per week. That way you can just keep on practicing. It doesn't get any better than practicing, because that will identify, oh, I guess I don't know that as well as I thought I did, or why isn't that not happening? And every time we have that happen, at least for me, and I think we're a lot like each other, every time something doesn't go quite right, if I take a few minutes and say, why is that? Oh, and this light bulb go off. And after a few times, we become more familiar with the technologies, how they work, how they respond. And also, as you take these skills and you start using them in a Cisco network, for troubleshooting, which is what we do a lot of the times, is troubleshoot, why isn't this working? It becomes more helpful because we're familiar with the CLI and how the underlying protocols work. All right. Hey, everybody, if you haven't already, please click on like if this video is useful for you. If you have time to download the lab from thekeithbarker.com. Again, this is lab 2020-04-10. And so if you want to download that lab, practice with it. If you were able to solve it and you want to leave me a note, feel free to do that. You can do it in the Discord server or in the comments for this video. Whether or not you leave a comment, my goal for you would be to do the practice and get that hands-on experience with the technology, which will make you better and better and better. So a couple other things before we go. Right after this video, when it's being delivered, premiered, which is coming up in like 55 minutes as of this recording, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to jump in the server on Discord and have a voice chat. So if you want to join us there and ask questions or hang out for a few minutes, you can do that as well. You can also DM me on that server. And my focus on that server is CCNA 200-301. So supporting individuals, helping questions that surround that technology, and helping everybody get to that next level. So it's been great having you. If you haven't already, click on subscribe. We'd love to have you get the alerts and so forth of when new videos drop. And keep on practicing, keep on getting getter. Keep on practicing, keep on getting better, and I'll see you in the very next video or possibly on Discord, whichever comes first. All right, thanks everybody, and have a great, great rest of your day.